Hey, well, welcome to this conversation. We're here at Jones Assembly. This is about us being in something together, right? We're in a current kind of state in the world. There are businesses that are figuring it out how to thrive in this environment. So we want to have a conversation about really two things. Number one, the small business economy and what you're encountering and how we're working together. But number two, we want to talk about developing happy and healthy employees. One of the things that's really kind of huge at Heartland is where we work on the culture almost as much as we do the work, because it's foundational to our business. So we want to talk about that. Those are really the two topics about what we want to chat about. We've got Vince and we've got Lance here who really are thought leaders in both of those spaces. Vince leads the business as it relates to Heartland in general, and then Lance leads the payroll and POS sides of the business as well. So I'm just the marketing guy, so I'm just going to kind of be here to help shape the conversation. But ultimately, we want to ask you some questions and see what your answers are, and then dig on the things that we think like, hey, let's riff a little bit, play a little bit of jazz as it relates to how we kind of conduct the rest of the conversation. Cool?
Great.
I haven't picked up my trumpet in like 20 years though, so.
Now's the time, Vince.
So thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
I wanted to ask you, I'm curious about the environment that you're operating in now and the impact of culture on retaining employees and keeping people happy and healthy here. You guys run 3 or 4 different brands, multiple different types of businesses within social order, and obviously a pretty complicated environment compared to some small business owners, but a lot of the same challenges that I think they're having as well. So maybe you could speak to us for just a few minutes about how happy and healthy employees and pursuing a culture that is meaningful and connected to people is helping your business right now.
Yeah. So when we founded the social order, that's what we tried to do, is unite all of the restaurants and create a culture and decide what is it that we stand for that's, transparent across all of our restaurants. So that's why we founded it. I think it's super important right now, just because, we have found pay doesn't matter as much to people as it used to. That used to be the number one motivator. Time off really matters to people. And then I think just like having a family, having a resource. So that's what we've tried to do. And we have right now 10 locations. So having people visit all of those locations is difficult. But I feel like we're figuring that out and getting people in place that can go from location to location, store to store, and kind of, unify everybody and get everybody on the same page. Yeah. I think, and we're just, as we are pretty young in the social order brand, just trying to figure out ways that we can unify somebody that might work at the Jones Assembly with somebody that might work in Fuzzy Stillwater, and that, they believe the same things and work for the same things.
Yeah. That's great. I want to hit on one particular thing you said, because I do think it's probably one of the biggest pain points right now in small business ownership and execution in the U.S., which is compensation. Mm-hmm. You drive by fast food restaurants and they're starting at $15 and $18 an hour.
Yeah.
And yet you're still working at a fast food restaurant, right, which you have to be okay with in exchange for a little more money than maybe you would have gotten before.
Yeah.
And for some people that's great, but for some people, to your point, we're starting to learn that it's not always about compensation. Mm-hmm. What have you guys figured out there in this unusual economy we're in?
I think particularly with managers, like we have seen it firsthand, where people are getting burned out and they are, it's a hard industry to be in. And so typically our first, route would be to offer a raise. And that has not worked.
To retain somebody, you mean?
To retain somebody,
yeah.
Yes. And that hasn't worked as well as it used to, and understandably so. So, we have to think of some other ways to do that. And I think time off is huge. I think a lot of restaurants are giving, signing bonuses and offering high hourly wages. And while that can be a great temporary fix, we're really trying to look at what as a whole can we do to improve their lives, and improve their work-life balance, because this industry has always just been known for kind of a stopover in people's careers. They get out of college, they do it while they're in college, and then they get burned out and then they move on. And we are just trying to look at it from like, how can we make this a career and what all can we offer to do that? So even for hourly employees, not just managers.
What's some of this like secret sauce? Like what are the things that you do to help somebody realize this is actually a real job? What are some of the practices,
tangible
techniques,
things.
the tangible
Yeah.
things? Like,
Yeah, I think it varies from location to location. Just, our workforce obviously varies. At the Jones Assembly, and we're still figuring it out, but I think training is huge. We put a huge emphasis on training and knowledge to where they, knowledge is power. So if they know a ton about wine or recipes, and they feel empowered to sell, and then they in turn make more money, they could potentially, if they're making more money, work less shifts, that sort of thing. And then I think too, we've always promoted from within. And I think right now it's like 90% of our management is promoted from within. So making that known and seeing if somebody has potential or they're really working hard, this is something they really do want to pursue, identifying that and telling them, telling them, hey, you're on the fast track to be a manager, or you have this great potential, or we see something in you. Just making sure our managers are doing that, and that we're doing that with them too, our managers. So.
And Courtney, I want to, something you said that really resonated with me. So I was a fast food cook in high school, for 18 months at McDonald's, and who would have ever thought I'd make a career out of that? But something you said that I think is interesting, really it's a part of your culture to tell that person, hey, you are a talented professional. You can be so much more than what you vision yourself to be.
Yeah.
I tell folks when we hire them at Heartland, if they lasted any time in fast food, any part of fast food, hire them immediately.
Yeah.
I mean, it takes a lot of grit and tenacity.
Yes.
But can you speak more about that? I think that's an important point to make, is this communicating their value so they know their value.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's just a light bulb in their head. That was what happened to me. I was a cocktail waitress, and I was going to speech pathology school to get my master's, and restaurants was just a thing I was doing on the side. And our owners approached me and they said, we have an opening for a management position. We think you'd be great. They told me, like, you're really good at this. These are your strengths. And it makes you feel valuable, and it makes you feel engaged and, invested in the company. And then I started thinking, okay, should I take on student debt, or should I make, get a salary, more than most of my friends out of college are making? And I definitely chose the right path. But I think so often that happens where you just let somebody's like, I'm going to nursing school, or I'm doing this, and you just kind of let them go. And we've really tried to fight for people. We don't always win, but if it's like, hey, you're gonna go work here, just why don't you try a management position here, or try this, or see if you like this, or stick around for 6 more months until we open this restaurant. We've tried that, and it doesn't always work, but a lot of times I think it just at least makes them feel more valuable as people too. So.
Yeah, and I think it's worth noting, you started as a waitress at one of the concepts, and now you're the president of Social Order.
Yes.
I mean, that's
We're
pretty
really
cool.
small. I know, it is cool. It's a cool, and it really is like, there's so many of our top executives, that pretty much all of them, that have had the same trajectory. My husband was the same way. He was a bartender, and he's grown with the company, and works in the corporate office now. And so I think the majority of us are that way. So I think it is like, we're not just saying it, it's actually a real thing. Yeah.
If the Social Order had a mantra that describes your culture, what would that be?
I think it's that we want to take care of the people who take care of our guests. So
It's powerful.
Yeah. So I think we had always looked at it like a lot of restaurants, and culture is changing, where you put your guest first. The guest is always right. And while we still want to provide a really high level of customer service, we have just, we want to be in our employees' corner. And I think take care of them, and then we will have, we will see that through our guest experience. And I think that's been the most important thing that we've really tried to do.
Yeah, that's at Heartland we have a tenant, happy and healthy, and it says happy and healthy employees equal happy and healthy customer equal happy and healthy business. It's the same. It's the same concept. And I know that if our employees are healthy and happy, when you call Heartland and you make that call, they're going to take care of you. No different than if I were here ordering a cocktail at the bar or a burger. Your folks are going to take care of me because they're happy and healthy. It's
Yes.
awesome. And again, unique in the business.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, so I'm really curious about something. As successful as you guys have been at thinking differently about career path and opportunity and potential with your employees, it is also true you are a restaurant and in the restaurant business. And so you're going to have what some people might refer to as more part-time or transient or 6-month job here, 2 years there, whatever, get through college and then go do my real, whatever the thing is, right? And yet you still have this amazing opportunity to impact the lives of your employees, which, as you just said, impacts the lives of your guests, which allows them to be these recurring investors in the business by buying more and coming back, right? What's one thing you really hope people take away from social order employment when they move on to whatever might be next for them, if you aren't successful at keeping them here on a career track forever?
I mean, I just hope that it's, a great memory that they were able to build relationships and that they can fondly look back on those relationships. I think, too, just overall people skills. We really try, obviously, in this business, you have to have people skills.
There's always a demanding person somewhere.
Yes, but I think that this job really tests that, and to be able to take that into the working world, we hear from former employees all the time that that it was the best job they'd ever had, and that they took a lot with them, that they're able, if they're in customer service now or whatever it may be, that they feel like they are much better than some of their colleagues just in talking to people and interacting with people. So
That's great.
Yeah.
That was really good.
What let's go back like a year and a half when I'm sure there were a whole lot of unknowns in the social orders
Yes.
business world. Other than being able to have some sort of secret vision to foresee the pandemic's impacts, what would you say is the most critical change you've made to your business to continue the growth path you were on pre-pandemic with all of the things that are in this new world we find ourselves?
I think it's taking care of employees. I really do.
It's so interesting you go back to that.
It's just, and that wouldn't have been my answer 6 months out of the pandemic, because it was just like survival mode at that point, and you didn't know anything. You didn't know what your financial status was going to be, if you could reopen, like all of those things. But since then, it's been like kind of two waves. So first it was like just operationally really nervous about how you were going to reopen, if mask, testing, all of these things, all of these like daily issues. And now the second wave is like everybody's mental health and their happiness. And that is going to be an ongoing thing that we see. So I feel like that's the biggest change, just in perspective. Like, this is for sure the most important thing. Like we always said, we wanted to take care of our employees and that we wanted everybody to be happy in their jobs, but that goes beyond just, paying them well and being nice to them while they're at work. It's like, what else can we do to invest in them as people and in their future? And to retain them too, because obviously just retaining talent, finding talent right now is super difficult. So
I find that so interesting and powerful, because I think most people would assume as a restaurant, you would say curbside, to go, changing your menu to serve people at home, whatever that thing might be described as. And your immediate, like unthought answer was just people.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting because you look back at that year and a half, the needs of the people who work for the businesses across the United States were so unpredictable and consistent across the business that everybody needed something different from their employer. And props to you all for choosing to step up and meet those needs versus just, no, go do more, go find a way to sell, et cetera, et cetera. I think that's fantastic.
Thank you. We're trying. I mean, we're not there yet, but every day we think of something else or hear somebody else's, a problem or whatever. So we're always trying to think about ways to do that.
Yeah,
so.
that's fantastic. So if you could go back 5 years-ish to the Courtney of then, what advice would you give yourself in relation to running a small business that maybe hindsight has offered you?
I think it would be, don't let talent leave or slip away. Really nurture those relationships. I think, we've operated with like we had in the past with everybody's replaceable. I think every company wants to think that, but for us, it's like, well, maybe physically, but like, this person is the best at what they do and we can't lose them. Whether it be just that they want more money and you don't feel like you can give it to them, or, they're just making you mad that day and you don't want, like just getting over that. I think just as a young manager too, like those things that seemed like they were really, important at the time. It's like, just look at it big picture. Like they're a very talented individual, and you want to keep them. So find a place for them or make it work.
Yeah,
So.
that's great. That's great.
Vince, you mentioned something earlier that every answer you've given today started
been about
with people.
employees, yeah.
Yeah. Not once did you go to the business and start with the business. Every single answer started with your people.
That's kind of, I look at that as my job, is to care about the people. Everybody else can care about the operations and all of that. But I don't know, I kind of have like looked at myself as like this mother figure of the group. I think there's a lot of men in our company at the top, and it's just so nice sometimes to have a woman's perspective. And not that they don't care about the people, but I think like I've just kind of made that my goal. And I think all of our, leaders do that. But yeah, that's just kind of been my role. And we want to hire more people that can think like that and do that. That really just like, we want to hire someone that's like, the vice president of people. That literally, that's all they do is go around and talk to people and say like, I think we need to give this person this or this. We still have a ways to go in getting there. So.
Yeah, I love it.
Well, Courtney, it was really awesome to spend some time with you. I've said it to you off camera and on camera. The amount of special things that you're doing at the Social Order, it's definitely very different than a lot of the other conversations that we've had about things that are going on during the pandemic. So I definitely appreciate Vince, Lance coming along, having the conversation with you, and we just appreciate the partnership.
Yeah, thank you for the time.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely.